Hello everybody, it's Non-Scene News here, and today we got a lot of breaking dates today. So the first news coming today is coming from Russia. We got news of some statements coming from the Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov. So Dmitry Peskov, the Kremlin spokesman, stated that Bashar al-Assad's resignation from presidency in Syria was his personal decision. So according to the Kremlin spokesman, Bashar al-Assad was not, he wasn't forced to resign as president or forced to flee Syria. It was his personal decision. So there you go. We've also got news that the State Duma in Russia has also called for Bashar al-Assad to be granted Russian citizenship. So according to the MP and the head of the State Duma, he has done quite a lot for Russia. He did not specify what exactly, but he has stated that he should be granted citizenship in Russia. So I'll keep you updated if that actually goes through. We've also gotten some more news come from Moscow that Putin holds talks with India's defense chief. So if you can see here in the bottom left corner, the Indian defense chief has visited Moscow in the Kremlin, where he declared that India will always be with Russian colleagues despite numerous pressure on New Delhi. So he also said that friendship between our countries is higher than the highest mountain and deeper than the deepest ocean, the Indian defense minister told the Russian President Vladimir Putin during the meeting at the Kremlin in Moscow. He said that India has always stood with the Russian friends and will continue to do so in the future. And actually, on the topic of Russian and Indian relations, we have to go to Kaliningrad, a Russian province near the border of Poland and Lithuania. So yesterday, a ceremony to hand over the new Russian frigate Tushil BNF-70 Project 11356 to the Indian Navy took place in Kaliningrad. So the Russian Navy has yet again handed over another frigate to the Indian Navy, which they produced. The Russians produced for the Indian Navy. So the Russians have now yet again give the Indian Navy another frigate, BNF-70. So very interesting news. And now let's just really quickly head back to Putin. So Putin suggests that the Orshnik ballistic missile emerges and reduces dependence of the use of nuclear weapons. The Russian President Vladimir Putin emphasized that Moscow is not tightening its nuclear doctrine, but instead refining it, and Russia's focus should be enhancing the Orshnik ballistic missile system rather than altering its nuclear doctrine. So if you don't know what the Orshnik ballistic missile is, it is the new Russian missile which they, I quote, tested on the Dnipro city of Ukraine. This was when Ukraine was granted the ATACMS missiles approval to strike deep into Russia. So Russia unveiled the new the Orshnik ballistic missile. So Russia is now seems to be reducing its dependence on nukes and rather changing this with the new ballistic missile, the Orshnik. So this was quoted by Putin. We've also got news that Russia has actually imposed a 50% tariff on furniture from China, the People's Republic of China. So Russia has just imposed 50% tariffs on furniture from China. We've also got some news coming from Belarus. Come from Minsk. So according to the Belarusian President Lukashenko, the Orshnik missile will be deployed in Belarus. Missiles will be supplied free of charge by Russia in the second half of 2025. So the Belarusian president said that he sees Minsk, so Belarusian possession of the system, as an effective deterrent against military aggression. He said that if we have such powerful conventional weapon, before they come to us with tanks and other infantry fighting vehicles and missiles, they will think twice. He is quoted as saying by Belta. Minsk will select 3 dozen sites in Belarus to place the Oshnik missile system based on the minimum distance to the targets, he added. So the Oshnik new Russian ballistic missile will be deployed in Minsk in the second half of 2025, according to both Vladimir Putin and the president of the president of Belarus, Lukashenko. And yet again, we've gotten another confirmation that there are apparently dozens of Russian nuclear weapons again, dozens of Russian nuclear weapons in Belarus, the president also stated. Now let's go to Ukraine, where news that the US has just authorized a $266.4 million sale of F-16 service and equipment to Ukraine. So the US State Department has just approved a potential sale of F-16 maintenance services and related equipment estimated to be worth $266 million US. So Ukraine has already lost one F-16 without a single Russian missile being fired, and even the US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan admits that the weapon won't do much good in Ukraine, but gives Ukraine another layer of defense. So the US authorized a new $266 million sale of F-16 services and equipment to Ukraine. We've also got news that the US also announced a $20 billion aid package for Ukraine using frozen Russian assets. So the United States has pledged $20 billion to Ukraine, drawing from frozen Russian assets. This initiative is part of the G7's plan to allocate 50 billion euros to Ukraine. The aid will be structured as a loan, with repayment covered by taxes on excess profits generated from the frozen assets. So, big news. We've also got news that Zelensky said that there are almost 800,000 Russian soldiers in Ukraine. He also said that if Ukraine falls, Putin will return to Syria and Africa. The Kiev Post states that we see that Assad's regime has fallen. Why? Because there are no real Russian troops there. Let's be honest, the president stated. So this is according to Kiev Post. We've also got news that Zelensky is going to be calling the President of the United States, Joe Biden, to discuss with him the invitation of Ukraine to NATO. He does not want to talk about this, apparently, with Trump. We've also got news that Trump said that Trump also stated that Ukraine should probably not expect the current levels of military aid from the US under his new administration. And Zelensky also said that mobilizing 18-year-olds is not a priority for Ukraine. We must not compensate for the lack of weapons with the youth of our soldiers. Zelensky responded to calls for lowering the draft age to 18. The president empathized, focusing on providing brigades with equipment and training rather than drafting younger recruits. And the last statement coming from the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is that 10 to 12 additional Patriot systems would allow Ukraine to fully protect its airspace and make war for Putin meaningless. The systems can be financed with frozen Russian assets. And that was the last statement from the President of Ukraine. We've also got some news coming from the Chancellor of Germany. Germany will re-evaluate the HTS rebel group based on its future actions. We've also got news that the Friedrich Merz, the front runner for German Chancellor in the upcoming early elections in Germany, visited the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Kyiv. He stated that we will do everything in our power to support Ukraine with what it needs to uphold its right to self-defense, he tweeted. The Friedrich Merz, the frontrunner for the German Chancellor, stated and has been a vocal critic of Chancellor Olaf Scholz's caution approach to arming Ukraine, particularly regarding the supply of the Taurus long-range cruise missiles. So, very big news happening there. We've got some more news coming from Transnistria, which I haven't actually added on the map, which I should do that next video. But we've got news that Transnistria has declared an economic emergency over Russian gas supply threat. So the leader of Transnistria region, Vadim, has signed a decree on December the 9th introducing a 30-day economic state of an emergency due to the risk of Russian gas supplies disruptions, the newsmaker media reported. The emergency measures included conserving gas and energy resources and banning energy exports and restricting specific financial and economic activities such as moving goods, funds and services. The decree must still be approved by the legislative of Transnistria. But obviously, the threat of the gas cut-off arises from Ukraine's decision not to renew the transit contact for Russian gas to Europe beyond 2024. So Transnistria has declared an economic emergency due to Russian gas supply threat, and I'll keep you updated on what happens there. We've got some more news coming from Slovakia, where the Slovak Prime Minister Fico has commented on the US calls to lower the mobilization age in Ukraine. He said that what does American President Biden have to do with conscripting 18-year-old boys to war? He questioned. We've also got news coming from the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. The United Kingdom will suspend all aid programs to Georgia and limit interaction with the Georgian government, according to the Foreign Minister of the United Kingdom. We've also got news that the UK and Cyprus unite to counter Russian money laundering. So the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and the Cyprus President Nikos has vowed to collaborate in combating Russian money laundering aimed at evading sanctions. So Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, emphasised that the joint effort will stop the flow of illegal finance through Europe to starve Putin's war machine and protect global stability. That was according to the British Prime Minister. And now let's head to probably one of the biggest news again, and it's coming from Syria. So we've got news that and reports that if you remember in the last video, we talked about how Israel is launching a huge operation in Syria, a ground offensive and also a missile operation. So we've just got new reports that Israel has completely destroyed Syria's navy during a recent and ongoing Israeli Air Force airstrikes on a port I think it was the Tartus port or some other port in Syria. But if you can see here in the bottom left corner, we can see a huge amount of Syrian ships that have been sunk in port due to recent Israeli airstrikes. And Israel didn't actually just target the naval assets. Israel also hits major Syrian air bases across Syria, destroying infrastructure and dozens of helicopters and planes that the HTS rebels managed to capture. So, according to Benjamin Netanyahu, Netanyahu said that he approved airstrikes on strategic military targets abandoned by the Syrian army to prevent them falling into hands of the HTS rebel group in Syria. So, the Netanyahu stated that we have no intention of interfering in the international affairs of Syria, but we intend to do everything necessary to ensure our security. So, Israel has taken this decision to destroy all of the captured equipment that the HTS rebel groups managed to capture, and about 80% of Syrian military capabilities have been destroyed, the IDF estimates, so the Israeli Defense Forces estimates. So, huge operations, and this is a huge operation that the Israelis managed to do, and it seems that they might have just pulled it off. Let's go back into some politics regarding Syria. We got news and some footage of the meeting between the Syrian Revolutionary Commander Ahmed, the leader of the HTS rebel group. And you can see he is sitting across with the Prime Minister of Syria, well, I should say the previous Prime Minister of Syria that served Assad al-Bashar in his government. So they were discussing, coordinating and discussing the transfer of power peacefully. We've also got news that the new Syrian new government has announced plans to adopt a free market model to attract investments and rebuild after 13 years of war, marking a departure from decades of state control, Reuters reports. We've also got news that the HTS rebel groups have apparently, according to the leader and Wall Street Journal, have been building its military capabilities for 4 years and had already established a military academy before the latest offensive. So according to the Wall Street Journal, the HTS rebels were planning this offensive, this huge takeover of Syria for 4 years straight. So big news. We've also gotten some more news of the situation on the Turkey and Syrian border. So again, large numbers of, it seems, of Syrian refugees who were driven away from their homes have now apparently been returning to the country through the Turkish and the Syrian border. So we can see here, we can see more and more people apparently coming into Syria. We've also got some more news of some friendly fire. So the US-backed PKK and the LPG rebel groups also shot down an American MQ-9 Reaper UCAV in Syria. We've also got some statements coming from the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken about the matter in Syria. He stated that the ousting of Assad is a great opportunity for the Syrian people to choose their own future, but it also carries considerable risk. ISIS will try to use this period to re-establish capabilities in Syria, but the United States will not let this happen. So I'll keep you updated on that. We've also got some news coming from China that the previous president of the Russian Federation, and I think the head of the council of the Russian Federation, I believe, has arrived in Beijing for a 2-day visit where he will hold meetings with China's top leadership. We've also got news that Chinese car exports to the US hit an historic high, statistics reports. So exports of passenger cars from China to the US has reached a historic high of $2.9 billion in the first 10 months of this year, Sputnik has calculated. So this is the highest value for such a period since 1992. Previously, such statistics were not kept. So golf cars, snowmobiles, hybrid cars, electric buses, and tractors. The US buys all of this from China, in addition to ordinary passenger cars. So China hits the Chinese and US trade. Well, Chinese exporting cars to the US hit an historic high. We've got some news coming from North Korea that the US reveals North Korea's demand to Russia in exchange for war support. So Russia will provide, apparently, allegedly to the US intelligence, Russia will provide North Korea with fighter jets in exchange for the thousands of troops Pyongyang has reportedly sent to support Moscow's war against Ukraine. But again, there's been no footage, nothing to support that North Korean soldiers are actually in Russia at this minute. But the head of the United States Pacific Forces said, so Admiral Samuel Perot, the commander of the Indo-Pacific Command, told reporters that Kim Jong-un's government is set to receive MiG-29 and Su-27 aircraft from the Russian Federation, introduced 4 decades ago, according to the Aviation Week network. We've also got news that Russia has sent 100, I quote, elite goats to North Korea. So Vladimir Putin's latest gift to Kim Jong-un is apparently 100 purebred goats. And we've also received news coming from South Korea that South Korea's ex-defense minister, which was detained, if you remember in the last videos, he was detained for the martial law act that happened. He's apparently attempted suicide at a detention center where he where he tried to hang himself with his own underwear. So according to officials, he is alive. So he attempted suicide. And now let's head to the Philippines, where we've got news that tens of thousands evacuated as an explosive volcano erupts in the Philippines. So a powerful eruption at the Canlaon volcano in the central Philippines forced the urgent evacuation of at least 87,000 residents from the surrounding danger zone on Monday. So if you see here on your screen, this is the exact volcano which we are talking about. And if you can see here in your bottom left corner, this is the volcano that erupted. So fumes of smoke and ash rose thousands of feet into the sky as ash rained down on the locals. So apparently, according to the Philippine officials and news and local media, 87,000 residents from the surrounding area have been evacuated. And now let's head to Australia, where we've got news that the Australian Navy joins elite Western missile club with successful long-range tests. So Australia is now the third country in the world after the US and the UK to successfully acquire and launch a Tomahawk cruise missile. So Australia will spend 1.3 billion Australian dollars on acquiring 200 Tomahawk cruise missiles to be deployed on Hobart class destroyers and the Virginia class submarines, and possibly the Hunter class frigate. So the Defence Industry Minister of Australia claimed the deal was a game changer for the Australian Defence Force's capabilities, while the Deputy Prime Minister Richard Marles said that it would support a peaceful, stable and prosperous region. So Australia has now joined the club along with the UK and the US regarding Tomahawk cruise missiles. And the last news today is coming from the US, where we've got news that a firestorm in Malibu, close to Los Angeles, has happened. So a huge firestorm has swept California. So 2,200 acres have been affected with zero containment, according to social media. So the sky over Malibu, California has turned orange due to the wildfires. There are massive evacuations have been issued to people around these areas in California. 12,000 people have been evacuated. Tens of thousands were left without electricity, local media reports. So there's a huge firestorm that has happened near this approximate area in Malibu. I think that's how you pronounce the name, but very big news. And the last news today is coming from some statements coming from President-elect Donald Trump. So he posted on X that it was a pleasure to have dinner the other night with Governor Justin Trudeau of the great state of Canada. I look forward to seeing the governor again soon, so that we may continue our depth talks on tariffs and trade, the results of which will be truly spectacular for all. DGT. So Donald Trump has been quoting as Canada as the 52nd state of America, and kind of making fun of Justin Trudeau, calling him the governor of Canada, not the president. So very interesting news. And that's all the news I actually have for you today. I am Non-C News. I'll try and provide you news that medias around the world do not show you. I do these videos hopefully daily, so consider subscribing and liking. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all later. Bye.